Raised to be a mere shadow, he was ordered to abandon his desires and blindly follow his brother's footsteps. Yet, acting as a mere shadow meant pushing his body to its absolute limits, gasping for breath in the dark. But even in the dark, a shadow's desperate struggle draws the eyes of a mocking observer. Bloodied and beaten, he grits his teeth as the shadow of a mocking enemy looms, ready to crush whatever remains. To survive, he had to become a legend, a knight strong enough to face every warrior on the continent. But the world only sees him as a shadow of his brother, a target for ruthless foes eager to break him. Facing the ruthless Boris, Sian Verte spits blood and stands his ground, determined to step out of his brother's shadow. Boris only laughs, a wicked sneer twisting his face as he prepares to snuff out Sian's desperate spark of hope. But as dark energy surges, the tables turn. With a cold grip, he demands the truth. Who is really pulling the strings? With dark aura erupting, his voice drops to a chilling whisper. Was the Emperor himself behind this conspiracy? Suffocating in the dark mist, Boris gasps in horror as the terrifying truth of Sian's rumored power finally dawns on him. An assassin of the mist. With a cold sneer, Sian unleashes a terrifying crimson aura, ready to execute his target. But to the Knights of Light, he is nothing but a heretic, a rebel that must be ruthlessly erased from existence. Unfazed by their judgment, Sian unleashes a terrifying crimson fury, promising to tear his executioners apart limb by limb. But his arrogant enemy only laughs, sealing the battlefield with an inescapable 9-star magic barrier to trap Sian's fury. Trapped in a deadly barrier, Sian must find a way to escape and expose the shadow mastermind behind his brother's fate. With a roar of pure rage, Sian unleashes his crimson aura, ready to shatter their inescapable barrier with sheer, unyielding force. But just as his crimson rage is about to explode, a sharp command echoes through the battlefield, freezing him in his tracks. A holy envoy steps forward, bowing deeply as Eschel Verte commands Sian to stand down in the presence of the church. Shocked by the sudden intervention, Sian's crimson fury wavers as he stares in disbelief at those who dare stop his vengeance. A cruel reminder of the chains that bind him. He was born to live and die in his brother Eschel's shadow. As his vision blurs with blood, a sickening realization hits Sian. The true mastermind is pulling the strings from the shadows. Could the ultimate mastermind behind his suffering really be his own brother, Eschel Verte? The sickening truth finally stands before him. Broken by the weight of betrayal, his knees buckle as he collapses onto the cold stone, his strength completely spent. Standing over his broken brother, Eschel looks down with cold indifference, demanding to know why Sian is so shocked by his arrival. Clinging to his fading crimson aura, Sian looks up at the towering figure of his brother, the ultimate wall he could never surpass. Looking up in utter disbelief, Sian gasps. How could his own brother, the shining hero Eschel, be the architect of his agonizing ruin? With cold, hypocritical praise, Eschel commends Sian's service, sealing his fate under the guise of noble duty. The ultimate betrayal. All Sian's suffering and blood were nothing more than a stepping stone for his brother's twisted glory. Calling it mercy, Eschel prepares to end Sian's suffering, twisting his ultimate betrayal into a sickening act of salvation. Clinging to his dying breath, Sian looks up in agonizing confusion, his broken voice whispering a question born of pure betrayal. With absolute indifference, Eshel looks down at his broken brother, offering nothing but a mocking, chilling question. Twisting the truth, Eshel roars with righteous fury, accusing Sian of deception and branding his struggle as an unforgivable sin. A murderer? Sian gasps in shock as his brother twists his sacrifices into abhorrent, unforgivable sins. Furious at his brother's sick lies, Sian's blood boils as he refuses to let this utter nonsense go unanswered. Because behind every lie lies a single bloody truth, the desperate, greedy struggle for the imperial throne. To secure that throne, they waged an endless war, disguising their greed as a crusade to crush the Demon King's army. A brutal war sold as a holy unification, forcing millions to bleed just to satisfy the insatiable greed of a crown. He sacrificed everything to build his brother's throne, accomplishing every bloody deed, only to be discarded like a worthless pawn. Sian refuses to remain a stepping stone. That stolen life, that stolen destiny, it belongs to him, and he will take it back. Betrayed at the very finish line, Sian's desperate scream echoes as his crimson aura erupts in pure, agonizing rage. 20 years of dog-like devotion rewarded with execution. Sian's raw, agonizing hatred explodes into a blinding storm of crimson fury. Even as his body breaks, Sian steps forward through a pool of blood, his crimson aura burning with unyielding fury. Pouring every ounce of his soul into one final, desperate strike, Sian prepares to shatter his chains or die trying. Survival no longer matters. With a roar of absolute hatred, Sian unleashes his final, world-shattering strike to destroy his treacherous brother. Sian's impossible wrath shatters their expectations. Faced with his monstrous crimson power, the terrified knights realize they are no longer fighting a human. With a chilling sneer, Sian tears down the hero's fake facade. The great Eshel, reduced to a coward trembling before his own shadow. Gritting his teeth in sheer humiliation, the legendary hero's perfect mask finally cracks under Sian's terrifying pressure. With a devastating roar, Sian unleashes his ultimate strike, a crimson torrent of pure hatred to tear his brother's legacy apart. The crimson torrent slams against the hero, forcing him to defend desperately as his perfect legacy crumbles in the fury. To bring this false hero down, Sian must strike his vitals with a devastating blow Eshel can never recover from. Plunging like a wrathful meteor, Sian pours his absolute hatred into one devastating strike to shatter Eshel's golden shield forever. But Sian just realized something wrong with his attack. Before Sian's strike can land, a massive holy barrier erupts to protect Eshel. A blinding flash of holy light shatters Sian's advance, throwing him back as his deadly strike is completely deflected. With a sharp metallic clang, his crimson-soaked blade is ripped from his grasp, skidding uselessly across the cold stone floor. Disarmed and defenseless, Sian can only gasp as Eshel drives a cold blade through his chest, shattering his last hope of survival. Looking down at his dying brother, Eshel delivers a cold, final truth. He always saw right through Sian's desperate act. As Sian bleeds out, Eshel's cruel words cut deeper than any blade. He never trusted his shadow. Not for a single second. With a brutal stomp, Eshel crushes Sian's final desperate struggle, pinning his broken shadow beneath his golden boot. Leaving Sian broken in the dirt, Eshel turns his back on his dying shadow, marching forward toward his stolen throne. Bleeding out on the cold stone, Sian spits out one final bitter curse as his vision fades into absolute darkness. As darkness consumes him, desperate voices echo through the abyss, calling for the fallen shadow who sacrificed everything. But instead of the cold embrace of death, Sian is violently yanked back to reality by a shockingly familiar, screeching voice. Staring in disbelief, Sian recognizes his long-dead maid, Emily. How is she alive, and why does he feel so young? Gasping in sheer disbelief, Sian stares wide-eyed as he realizes the impossible. He has actually traveled back in time to his childhood. Staring at her, Sian realizes it has been 20 long years since they last met, yet she hasn't aged a single day. Looking around his childhood room, every piece of furniture is exactly as he remembers. He has truly returned to the beginning. Touching his youthful face, the chilling reality sinks in. He really has regressed to the days before all the bloodshed began. But before he can even process his miraculous rebirth, a loud, demanding voice suddenly shatters his train of thought. It's his fiery maid, demanding he stop stalling and face his training. The harsh reality of his youth is officially back. A spar? The mere word sends a jolt through him, forcing this former master assassin to prepare for a childish duel. Sparring? The former master assassin can only stare in disbelief, his legendary mind struggling to register this childish reality. Back in the house of Verte Dukedom, the very place where his agonizing life as a shadow first began. Staring at the towering castle, Sian confirms the impossible. He has truly returned to the dukedom of his agonizing past. As memories of his past life clash with this peaceful reality, a chilling question suddenly grips his mind. The exact day his hell began. 27 years ago, the fateful morning he was forced into his brother's shadow forever. Just 1 year before his entrance to the academy, the fateful place where his agonizing journey as a shadow began. And overseeing this brutal monthly sparring match are the cold, absolute rulers of the Verte Dukedom, ready to judge his worth. His own father, Duke Verte, sat on the high throne, an absolute ruler whose icy gaze judged Sian's very survival. His opponent was Krantz Verte, his arrogant half-brother, born from another mother, ready to make his life a living hell. And behind Krantz stood his mother, Margaret Erzes, the official duchess, whose noble lineage guaranteed Sian would always remain an outcast. On this very day, the illegitimate child suffered a brutal humiliation that branded him as the family's ultimate laughingstock. With a cold, final command, his father cast him aside forever, sentencing him to a life of utter insignificance in the shadows. Destined for insignificance? Not this time. With a cold determination, Sian prepares to rewrite his past, starting with this pathetic duel. But as his opponent draws his weapon, a heavy, familiar tension fills the air. This time, Sian will not play the victim. Gripping the heavy rapier, the bitter reality sinks in. He has returned to the weak, fragile body of his 10-year-old self. Yet as he grips the steel, a strange, unknown sensation surges through his veins. This is no mere dream or magic. The impossible has happened. Sian stares in absolute disbelief as the reality of his regression finally sinks into his soul. Standing before his smug half-brother Krantz, Sian prepares to face his first trial. This time, the outcome will be entirely different. If destiny can be rewritten, then his first step begins right here, by shattering the miserable fate they forced upon him. With a cold command, the Duke raises his hand. The duel that sealed Sian's miserable fate is about to begin. Krantz charges forward with arrogant fury, completely unaware that the boy before him is no longer a weak child, but a lethal assassin. Krantz lunges with a wild, arrogant laugh, completely blind to the lethal killer now hiding behind Sian's fragile eyes. To a legendary master assassin, this lethal strike is so slow it's almost laughable. Is he a snail? With one effortless step, Sian casually slips past the clumsy strike, his movements completely baffling to his arrogant opponent. Gasping in shock, Krantz stumbles as Sian effortlessly glides past his blade, leaving his arrogant display completely shattered. Krantz's blade strikes empty air, slamming uselessly into the stone as Sian watches his pathetic struggle with absolute indifference. Infuriated by Sian's effortless evasion, Krantz roars in frustration, unable to land a single blow on his elusive target. With a swift, blinding parry, Sian shatters Krantz's arrogant assault, sending his weapon flying and leaving him utterly defenseless. Before Krantz can even process his defeat, Sian delivers a blinding counterstrike, completely shattering his opponent's balance. Gasping in agonizing shock, Krantz clutches his chest as Sian's merciless strike hits home, completely shattering his fragile, arrogant pride. Screaming in sheer agony, the arrogant Krantz collapses to the floor, completely broken by the boy he once looked down upon. As Krantz collapses in agony, the high table gasps in absolute horror, beholding the impossible defeat of their golden child. Standing over his trembling brother, Sian cold-bloodedly levels his blade at Krantz's neck, ending the mockery on his own terms. Victory was effortless, yet as he grips his blade, Sian realizes his resurrected body is still missing something crucial. Memories of agonizing torment flood Sian's mind. For years, Krantz used him as a punching bag, abusing him without mercy. To break the cycle of torment, Sian must crush Krantz so completely that he will never dare to stand against him again. In this new life given to him, Sian will never again play the submissive shadow. He will become the ultimate predator. From this moment on, he will cast aside his loyalty. No more sacrifices, no more shadows. Sian will only live for himself. With a pathetic whimper, Krantz collapses in total humiliating defeat, marking the very first step in rewriting Sian's destiny. A single victory changes everything. The powerful Duke delays his expedition, summoning Sian to a tense, unexpected meeting. Escorted by the legendary elite knight Yulkin, Sian walks into the lion's den, ready to face his cold, formidable father. But before he can even reach his father, a cold, poisonous presence blocks his path, the Duchess herself. Watching the bitter Duchess return from her beaten son's side, Sian can't help but flash a smug, mocking smile. Furious at Sian's smugness, the Duchess explodes in pure outrage, accusing him of shameless cruelty toward his own blood. Brushing off her fury with cold indifference, Sian leaves the shocked Duchess speechless, walking away without a single shred of regret. Yet the poisonous whispers of his birthright still echo, a harsh reminder that in their eyes, he will always be an outcast. Spitting pure poison, the Duchess sneers with absolute hatred, insulting his mother to put the lowly brat back in his place. A dark, lethal urge grips Sian's soul. Should he end her life right here? No. Her agonizing ruin can wait. A wicked smirk spreads across Sian's face. He knows exactly how to break her, and he will savor every agonizing moment. With a cold smile, Sian reminds the trembling Duchess of their upcoming academy days, leaving her sweating under his menacing gaze. With a chilling grin, he whispers a dark threat about her beloved son's future, reducing the arrogant Duchess to sheer, helpless terror. Trembling with sheer outrage, the proud Duchess can only sputter in disbelief as the child she despised threatens her entire world. Shocked to her core, the proud Duchess screams in outrage as the lowly child boldly threatens her beloved son's future. But the threat is already cast. With a mocking bow and a cold smirk, he seals his warning with chilling politeness. But before the furious Duchess can strike back, Sir Yulkin steps in. The Duke's cold summon cannot be delayed any longer. Sir Yulkin cuts in, politely dismissing the furious Duchess to lead Sian toward his fateful meeting with the Duke. Left utterly speechless, the Duchess boils with silent fury, realizing the family's shadow is completely out of her control. Mocking her helpless rage, Sian barely hides his amusement as he reminds her of the one law she can never defy. Protected by the Duke's strongest knight, Sian walks away, deeply impressed by the absolute authority shielding him from the Duchess's wrath. A soft knock shatters the silence. Standing before his father's chamber, a cold, commanding voice bids him enter. Stepping inside, Sian stands before the cold ruler of the house, the absolute patriarch who once discarded him like worthless trash. Bowing before his cold father, Sian swallows the bitter realization of the 15 long years that separated their last private meeting. With a cold, commanding voice, Duke Wallace Verte orders Sian to take a seat, initiating a tense confrontation decades in the making. The world worshipped Duke Wallace Verte as the continent's protector, the glorious hero who single-handedly halted the terrifying demonic invasion. A legendary warrior of exceptional magic and strategy, carrying the heavy burden of the realm on his shoulders alone. Even if it cost his life fighting the Demon King, this savior wanted nothing but absolute peace for the entire continent. But the savior beloved by the continent was a completely different man behind closed doors, especially to his own flesh and blood. An admirable savior who lived solely to serve his people, becoming the ultimate model of perfection everyone worshipped. His father's icy gaze pierces through him, demanding to know how a worthless shadow easily dodged a lethal strike. Caught off guard, Sian freezes under the suffocating gaze, desperately hiding the deadly secrets of his future assassin self. Under his father's suffocating gaze, Sian's effortless dodge is laid bare. The Duke saw everything, and he wants answers. The Duke's sharp eyes narrow as he demands the truth, his voice slicing through the tense silence with a single, chilling question. Caught in his father's suffocating gaze, Sian quickly fabricates a lie, claiming his deadly skills came from years of secret nightly training. But the Duke is no fool, narrowing his eyes as he questions whether Sian was secretly hiding his remarkable talent all along. Playing the timid child, Sian feigns humility to disarm his father's sharp suspicion, but the Duke isn't easily fooled. But the Duke's sudden, heavy grip on his head shatters Sian's fragile act, forcing him to face his father's true intentions. With a cold gaze, the Duke demands to know why Sian felt the need to brutally crush his brother after securing victory. The Duke's calculating questions catch Sian off guard. Could his cold, distant father actually be acknowledging his true potential? Under his father's cold gaze, Sian quietly admits his desire to prove himself, but the Duke's chilling response demands to know exactly what. Unfazed by the pressure, Sian boldly declares his superiority over Krantz, proving he finally understands the brutal rules of their family. Sian's bold declaration hangs in the air, but his father's sudden, chilling reaction catches the young assassin completely off guard. Instead of anger, a chillingly wide grin stretches across the Duke's face, praising the young assassin's brutal declaration with unsettling joy. With an unsettling grin, the Duke commands Sian to become a powerful shield for his brother, Eshel, binding him to the shadows once more. The horrifying command strikes like lightning, freezing Sian in utter shock. Was he truly destined to repeat this nightmare? Become his shield? Sian's soul screams in silent fury. Why must he bleed to build his brother's glorious future again? Looking at his father's cold gaze, Sian realizes the bitter truth. Even in this new life, his father's obsession with Eshel remains completely unchanged. Gritting his teeth in silent fury, Sian clenches his fist. He refused to be chained to Eshel's shadow again. But instead of punishment, the Duke offers a reward. This is Sian's perfect chance to demand what he needs to break his chains. Then, Sian locks eyes with his father, preparing to demand the one thing that will change his destiny forever. But his true desire runs deeper than any reward. Sian wants nothing less than the absolute destruction of everything his brother builds. Sian's insane demand leaves his maid utterly horrified. Who in their right mind would willingly volunteer for the deadly front lines? Sian calmly nods, completely unfazed by her panic. He's heading straight into hell, and absolutely no one can stop him. To Emily, Sian's choice was absolute madness. He was volunteering to march straight into a den of bloodthirsty, terrifying demon beasts. To the west of the Yusufai Empire lies Velius, home to the only true front line on the entire continent, the deadly Remea Valley. An endless slaughterhouse where humanity has clashed with savage demon beasts in blood and fire for hundreds of years. Facing the brutal reality of the front lines, Sian's stubborn father finally relents, but his permission comes with a single deadly condition. A deadly condition to prove he is qualified. But what did his father truly mean by that mysterious, chilling test? To survive his father's deadly trial, Sian must grow stronger and fast. He refuses to remain weak ever again. Fortunately, his legendary battle sense from his past life remains fully intact, allowing him to react with lethal precision. A spark of demonic power still lingers in his veins. To fully control this dark gift, his brutal training begins today. But before his first session can even begin, a thunderous crash shatters the silence as an angry voice screams his name. The door flies open as a sudden intruder aggressively grabs him, leaving both Sian and Emily frozen in sheer disbelief. Standing before Sian is Sister Elise, her cold, commanding presence instantly filling the room with overwhelming authority. Before he can speak, his furious sister Elise violently grabs his collar, demanding to know what madness he has planned. Shaking him senseless, Elise demands to know why he's throwing his life away on the front lines, while Emily watches in sheer terror. Elise's furious grip tightens as she screams in disbelief, demanding answers before she accidentally chokes the life out of him. Choked out and utterly exhausted, Sian collapses on the floor as Elise's furious lecture hammers his ears. Refusing to let him off easily, Elise barks a furious command that turns his exhaustion into pure dread. As the night deepens over the cold castle, her furious voice echoes, sealing his fate before the deadly journey even begins. To earn his path to the front lines, Sian must survive 3 brutal minutes against a deadly opponent. Facing his sister's overwhelming authority, Sian can only offer a reluctant plea, knowing there is no escaping this brutal trial. Ignoring his excuses, Elise locks eyes with him, her sharp gaze cutting through the tension with a chilling, unexpected question. With eyes like daggers, she demands his ultimate ambition. Is he truly planning to take over the entire family?
A petty title meant nothing to a master assassin. His true goal was far greater than their worthless family throne. If he wants to pave his own path, he must first survive her blade. She draws her sword, issuing a ruthless challenge.
With his muscles still screaming from his fight with Krantz, Sian faces another brutal trial without a single moment of rest. With a sudden burst of speed, Elise lunges forward, her blade ready to test his limits in this merciless trial. Before he can even raise his guard, Elise's blinding speed catches the young assassin completely off guard. How is she this fast? A sudden, explosive clash blasts Sian backward as Elise's overwhelming power completely shatters his guard in a single terrifying instant. But Sian's raw assassin reflexes kick in. He blocks her lethal strike, leaving his older sister utterly frozen in disbelief. Refusing to hold back, Elise leaps high into the air, raining down a devastating strike to completely crush Sian's fragile defenses. Shocked to her core, Elise stares in disbelief as her devastating strike is perfectly blocked by Sian's flimsy, thin rapier. Forcing a tense smile, Elise hides her growing irritation behind a mocking compliment, utterly shaken by Sian's impossible reflexes. But looking at his sister's terrifying expression, Sian realizes he messed up. He pushed her too far, and she's about to unleash hell. True to her word, Elise unleashes a relentless storm of sword strikes, forcing Sian to defend for his life. Screaming with intense focus, Elise brings down her blade with lethal power, pushing Sian to his absolute limits. Sian barely raises his blade in time, the bone-shattering force of her strike threatening to snap his fragile rapier in two. Shouting with absolute intensity, she presses her blade closer, determined to break through his desperate defense and end this spar. But as she pushes her blade closer, Sian's body reacts with a terrifying instinct that leaves her absolutely paralyzed in shock. Unleashing a subconscious assassin reflex, Sian effortlessly redirects her blade, leaving his sister utterly defenseless in a split second. His deadly assassin instincts take over. Sian panics in horror as his body reacts to kill his own sister. Desperately fighting his own killer instincts, Sian wrenches his blade aside at the very last second to save his sister's life. Wrenching his blade away, the sheer force of the deflected energy explodes, sending Sian flying into the air as Elise watches in shock. With a sharp thud, Elise lands gracefully on the stone platform, her composure unbroken as she searches for Sian through the dust. Panting in the shadows, Sian trembles in horror. If he hadn't diverted his blade, he would have killed his own sister. The deadly techniques of the mist were never meant for spars. They were engineered for one sole purpose: an instant, merciless kill. Trapped in his weak 10-year-old body, Sian desperately holds back his lethal instincts. How long can he survive without accidentally killing his sister? Channeling raw magic is the only way to match her strength, but his fragile 10-year-old body is already screaming at its absolute limit. Pushed to the brink, Ellis refuses to hold back any longer, chanting a powerful elemental spell to end Sian's defiance once and for all. Sian's eyes widen in absolute horror. She isn't just casting a spell, she's unleashing devastating, high-level, 6-star magic. With a sharp gasp, Elise unleashes her high-level Aqua Blade, raining down a devastating torrent to crush Sian's desperate defense. Faced with a lethal high-level spell, Sian sweats buckets in sheer terror. Is his sister actually trying to murder him? She has completely lost it, muttering like a maniac. Her terrifying obsession with victory turns this simple spar into a fight for survival. Caught in mid-air, Sian desperately braces for the impact, realizing a block will still send him flying off the castle walls. Cornered in mid-air, Sian is forced to unleash a forbidden technique. It's time to show her what a real assassin can do. A blinding flash shatters the night as his forbidden technique collides, sending shockwaves ripping through the ancient stone castle walls. Descending like a god of war, Sian unleashes a devastating beam of blue energy to shatter his sister's insane magic. Thrusting his blade forward, Sian begs for this madness to end, desperate to hold back his lethal instincts before it's too late. Elise roars with fury, demanding Sian stop hesitating and unleash his true lethal power against her. But before their clash turns fatal, a roaring command shatters the arena as Yoken steps in, forcefully halting their deadly duel. With a deafening roar, Yoken's massive blade slams between them, shattering their lethal exchange in a blinding burst of blue energy. A cataclysmic shockwave rocks the entire castle, sending a blinding pillar of light soaring into the heavens as their lethal duel is violently shattered. Stepping into the ruins of their clash, Sir Yulkin glares through the smoke, his stern voice calling out the reckless young lady. Lifting Sian effortlessly by his collar, Sir Yulkin barks a stern warning to Elise, reminding her she went way too far. Dangling helplessly from Sir Yulkin's massive armored grip, Sian cheekily grins, relieved that his timely savior finally decided to show up. Gasping in sheer disbelief, Elise stares at the sudden interruption, her wild obsession violently shattered in an instant. Snapping out of her frenzy, Elise burst into tears, wrapping Sian in a crushing hug as Sir Yulkin watched with pure exasperation. Clinging tightly, Elise weeps. Her terrifying fury was nothing but a desperate, twisted attempt to keep her beloved brother from marching to his death. Sian gently smiles, embracing his weeping sister. Her terrifying fury was just a desperate, hard-working shield to keep him safe. Elise wasn't just a protective sister. She was the undisputed genius of the Royal Academy, dominating every subject with perfect S grades. Blessed with a face so beautiful she was hailed as a child of God, she had mastered the blade since childhood. Beside her stood Eshel, the golden eldest son, destined to become the next legendary protector of the continent. But despite her brilliant genius, joining the Knights of Light only led Elise to a tragic, bloody demise. Reunited in this past life, Sian holds his precious sister close, swearing to shatter the tragic fate that awaits her. "I'll protect you this time," Sian vows silently, wrapping his arms around his shocked sister. This time, her tragic fate ends here. But their emotional reunion is cut short as Elise notices the legendary knight, raising a sharp question about their father's sudden absence. Guarding Sian in secret, Sir Yulkin reveals he was carrying out his lord's direct orders all along. I felt Sir Yulkin's presence trailing me the entire time. Had I played dumb, he would have remained hidden in the shadows. If Yulkin was sent to guard him, why keep it a secret? Sian realizes his cold father is playing a much deeper game. But before he can think any further, Sian's exhausted body finally gives out, collapsing fast asleep right into his sister's warm embrace. As her brother drifts off, Elise's fierce mask melts away, replaced by a tender smile of absolute protective love. Holding her sleeping brother under the quiet night sky, she softly realizes that despite his terrifying power, Sian is still just a child. The very next day, his sister departs for the academy, leaving Sian to push his fragile body through grueling, relentless physical conditioning. For 2 brutal weeks, Sian pushed his fragile 10-year-old body to its absolute limits, desperately building the stamina needed to survive the hell ahead. Collapsing onto the floor, Sian gasps for air. 2 brutal weeks of training have pushed his fragile young body to its absolute limit. He thought his legendary stamina would carry him, but this weak 10-year-old body is already begging for mercy. Just as Sian collapses from exhaustion, an unexpected package from his sister Elise arrives, sparking his hope for the brutal trials ahead. Inside lies Hellhound's blood, a legendary power-up with a stench so unbelievably foul it sends Emily reeling in absolute disgust. This rare black market treasure, harvested directly from the fiery hellhounds of Remia Valley, holds the key to Sian's ultimate evolution. Feared as a deadly poison due to its agonizing, burning taste, this foul blood is actually the ultimate catalyst for Sian's rebirth. This legendary blood permanently boosts magic and stamina, unlocking a level of raw, explosive power that most dismiss as mere myth. Knowing its terrifying effects from his past life, Sian prepares to drink the agonizing poison, completely ignoring Emily's sheer terror. Steeling his resolve, Sian gulps down the burning, foul liquid, embracing the agonizing heat that will reshape his fragile body forever. As the burning poison tears through his throat, Sian recalls a soup so foul it nearly took his life years ago. The ultimate culinary nightmare of his childhood, slammed down with a force that still makes his stomach turn. As the burning poison floods his veins, Sian screams in chaotic delight, leaving a horrified Emily questioning his absolute sanity. Steaming from the agonizing heat of the poison, Sian suddenly calls her name, leaving the terrified Emily scrambling to respond. With the deadly poison pulsing through his veins, Sian flashes a menacing grin. It's time to test this legendary medicine. Igniting the legendary power within, his very first step shatters the ground with an explosive newfound physical strength. With his body rebuilt and the trial behind him, Sian finally stands before the gates of his next grand destination. With his persistent guard Yulkin away making a report, Sian finally finds a moment of peace in his favorite solitary sanctuary. Recalling his brother's divine revelation, Sian searches the back hills, hunting for the dormant ancient temple hidden within the estate. Following the trace, Sian senses an incredible concentration of mana beneath his fingertips, exactly where the ancient revelation predicted. A secret hidden deep within his family's land. With a grin, Sian prepares to claim the ancient temple's power all for himself. With a violent slam, Sian unleashes the ancient temple's dormant power, a colossal torrent of crimson mana erupting from the shattered earth. A wicked grin spreads across Sian's face. Eshel won't stand a chance against the ancient secrets he's about to steal. As the earth shatters, revealing a hidden, glowing pathway, Sian stares down into the abyss, ready to claim his stolen destiny.